Ladies and gentlemen, what is good? We are back, Avry Sports Show, after a little bit of a break. Well, thank again Andrew Walker for coming on a few days ago. But now, it is the return of one resident of Sherwood Park. He is one half of the comedy duo Wilson and Bourhis. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, I guess let's go with it. I'm just laughing at your intro.
Anyway, folks, well, welcome back to the program, Mr. Josh Bourhis, Bourhis on Twitter, and your profile picture is of Beaker superimposed over your face, and your Twitter cover profile picture, Josh, is a still from a GIF of LeBron James spilling milk and spilling Fruit Loops, which I still laugh at every time I see that.
Yeah, that is one of the funniest gifts, probably, if not the funniest gift you will ever see.
When you first showed that gift to me, Josh, where did you even find it?
I couldn't tell you. I was at work, and I saw it, and Mike and I just broke down laughing. It was terrible.
I think it's fine. Like, that's the thing. LeBron James is probably one of the most disliked athletes in all of sports, but that's maybe the first time I actually laughed at something. Even though it was photoshopped, it was clearly photoshopped over some other guy's face. That may have been the first time I laughed at anything related to LeBron James.
It was photoshopped over some 5-year-old kid not strong enough to lift up a 4-liter of milk.
Here's the thing, that's from an actual commercial. So I want to see what commercial that is. I want to see what kind of Fruit Loops commercial has some 5-year-old kid spilling milk all over the table.
Yeah, no kidding. It's almost as bad as the Frosted Flakes commercial where the dad teaches his kid how to eat cereal. It's like, it's pretty easy.
And you know what seems funny with Frosted Flakes? How is no one concerned over a CGI tiger just walking in their back door like that?
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, let's go play sports, man.
Like, you know, that would concern me. Like, how'd you open this door? Like, who are you? How'd you even get in here? I don't care if you're Tony the Tiger. You didn't even knock. You just walked in.
Yeah, no doubt. Commercials nowadays are weird.
I know. And anyway, sir, you know what was weird? Well, it started off weird, but actually didn't go off too bad. The 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, we saw what happened. We saw the the hotels for the media were basically, they weren't even done yet. They were still building them, and we saw the horror stories. We saw there was a lack of water. The water that was there was brown. There was the stray dogs. There was no shower curtains. I mean, if you were in Sochi, Josh, your first day, you get there, and the water coming out of your tap is yellow like apple juice, what would you have said?
I'm thinking I want to go back home. You know what? It didn't start off good, but at the end of the games, I look back and I say it was actually a really good winter games. I loved it. I enjoyed watching every bit of it. Any chance I got, I definitely tuned in, even if it was a sport that I was watching ice dancing.
Yeah.
And never in my life would I think that I would watch ice dancing, especially because in Vancouver I didn't pay attention to that stuff. But yeah, it was a great game, and I'm excited for 2018 already.
Yeah, that's the one thing that everybody notices, because no one outside of, I can admit, we don't really focus much on ice dancing. We don't really watch much snowboard cross. But when it comes to the Olympics, you're watching that 24/7.
Oh yeah, some of the sports are ridiculous. Like the new sports that they added this year, like the snowboarding slope style and such, those were some of the best events, and Canada actually did really well in a lot of those events as well.
That's right. That's the one thing in snowboarding. We're a country that really does good in snowboarding. I know Mark McMorris, he got a medal on the very first day. Great to see him doing well. Hopefully, in Pyeongchang, he can get a gold medal in 2018. I mean, these sports are new. It's funny because it's really funny trying to see old school reporters try and learn and trying to adapt to what are really sports that started in the X Games.
Yeah, it's definitely something different, or even just even the commentators and stuff, what they say. It's and you're learning too, which is like it's a new sport for them, it's a new sport for us. It's just a good experience. We really cleaned up in the freestyle skiing as well, which is another one that always is exciting.
Oh, it absolutely is a very, very great thing to see. I know with the medals, and that's the one thing with the Olympics, you learn about the athletes you never would really see any other time, because one of the athletes you've seen the LaPointe sisters, Justine who won a medal. I mean, this is a chance for athletes who are 18, 19, 20 years old to get into the minds of Canadians on a high stage in sport.
Well, that's the thing too, and there's not a lot of funding for these athletes too, so for them to get their, even if it's one run of fame or 10 minutes of fame, it makes their days, it makes their years, and it's nice to see, especially young kids, because all it does is motivates people even younger than them to want to strive to get to the Olympics. I know you've talked about making a run in 2018, so.
I'm serious because Jesse the bobsled Jesse Lumsden, the former CFL running back, is a friend of mine and does train in Calgary. So I've considered why not for one day in the Olympics try and go down, see how bobsledding is, if I'm any good, and make an attempt. I mean, my dad tried out for the '92 team, crashed twice and gave up because that was enough for him. But why not?
Yeah, you just have to decide if you, like you were saying, if you want to be on the Jamaican bobsled team or if you want to be on the Canadian one. So.
Exactly, yeah, no, because my hair, I can compete for either one. I mean, that was too funny to see. That was a great story to see them, even though it was only two-man bobsled, the Jamaican team back in the Olympics. Unfortunately, they finished in dead last, but I mean, that's always the fun thing, too, to see in the Olympics. You see non-traditional winter countries in the Winter Olympics.
But didn't they lose all their equipment, too? So
yeah.
It's just a weird story.
It's a very strange story, and they had to compete on borrowed gear, but I mean, that would be really cool if one day these smaller nations come in and, say, win a medal in a non-traditional sport to their country.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you see sports like countries like Kazakhstan, like, I mean, they even medaled in, like, I think it was an ice dance or in figure skating. You'd never expect, like, a team like Kazakhstan. You'd be like, oh, well, they're probably more of a summer games team, right? And it's the same thing when Canada wins events in the summer games. You're like, okay, well, they really shouldn't. Like, they're not the best at that. So it's always nice to see random countries with like one medal here and there, and in some of the most obscure sports as well.
It's true.
In the games.
Yeah, it's funny. And we also had, like I said, you had Jamaica, you had Lebanon, I wonder what the most obscure country would ever be. I mean, I want to see a Vatican City team in the Winter Olympics, like a Vatican City downhill skier, just 1 year.
Well, that might be reaching a bit, but maybe you can hope for one of your favorite places is Madagascar. So maybe you'll see something like that eventually.
Get a Madagascar ice hockey team?
Yeah. Wow, that would be terrible. Well, you know what? The United Arab Emirates actually had a World Junior team, I think it was 2 years ago, in like the very bottom division.
That's right.
But they got disqualified, so they didn't even get to play. But they did have one, so there's your obscure hockey team.
Yeah, that's true. That would be interesting in 2018. I know switching to we'll go back to Sitzik rant on ice dancing, but I wanted to mention obscure nations in hockey. And in 2018, with the games in South Korea, it's gonna be interesting to see, depending on how the grouping goes. Even though Canada may not have NHL players, a Canadian team of non-NHL players against South Korea, that may end up very ugly for the Koreans.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I'm not sure like how the ruling goes, but does South Korea automatically have to put a team in for hockey? Because if they don't have to, I wouldn't.
They don't have to, no, but they will.
Yeah,
but they probably will.
Yeah, that's the thing. They probably will, but I wouldn't. I would vote strongly against that. Because, I mean, like, there's... Like, the teams that were in the tournament this year it actually made for one of the most competitive tournaments I felt, at least for, like, every team, the scores were still somewhat lopsided, but, like, at least the games seemed close. Like, I mean, that Sweden game versus, it was Latvia, I believe, 5-3, like, that, right. You would never see that.
No.
So and they had, I think Savitz Ojelund was the only NHL player on that team, or former NHL player on that team, so... That's the thing. It's nice to see that the rest of the nations are catching up, because especially when we don't send NHL players, because I don't think we're sending NHL players in 2018.
No,
that it might actually make you might see a team like Latvia or a team like probably not Slovenia, but like a Czech Republic or Slovakia get a bronze maybe.
Yeah, they might.
They luck out.
And with the 2018 team, people are saying how there are suggestions. Now, there are some suggestions for, it probably will end up being the Spengler Cup roster playing in the Olympics. But I saw some people saying, why don't you send the U of A Golden Bears represent Canada? Or why don't you send the Memorial Cup winner? The U of A Golden Bears, they may be able to hang. But why in the world would you send a CHL team? That does not make an ounce of sense, considering that Russia, Sweden, Slovakia are going to send all of their non-NHL pros to this tournament.
Yeah, I don't agree at all with the sending the CHL players, unless you have like a player like a Connor McDavid, where he's above and beyond. So you take him and you're like, okay, he's going to be one of the few from the teams. from the team. But yeah, I would take from university. I mean, these players are men. They're training like men. They're playing against men. I think that we would have the best shot of, like, I feel like they would almost be better to take than some of the members on the Spengler Cup roster. It's just a very competitive brand of hockey. I mean, there's Canadian players down playing for colleges in the U.S. as well.
Right.
The NCAA, even in Div 1 and Div 2, so you could reach from them. Plus, the caliber of play in the CIS is really good. I've watched a couple Bears games this year, and they absolutely trounced their opponents. The other thing that would be tough with that is just the timing of the Olympics, I find, because it's not like a bunch of university guys. It would be really tough to leave for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Of schooling, because, like, I mean, you'll see where maybe a week here and there you'll go because you have, like, a road trip or something. But, I mean, university hockey is played on weekends here.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday are really the only games unless there's a makeup game. So for these players, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. But at the same time, they're going to school still. They have midterms. They have this. It might just be tough to work around. With the CHL, it's the same thing too. It comes down to, do these teams want to loan their players? Because it's another 2 weeks, especially if you already lose that said player possibly for the World Junior Championships that year, and then you have to lose them again for another 2 weeks for the Olympics. It's something that I could see a lot of the general managers saying, you know what, we need you. We're a cusp playoff team. We need you this time. So you never know. It'd be the same thing as NHL.
Yeah.
But I think the university route is probably the best. Like, for us to actually have a chance to continue our dominance, university is what we should be grabbing from.
Probably, because the one thing with the guys who are on the Spengler Cup Canadian team, they're older guys. They're generally 35 to 36, 37, and the younger guys who are there were not really capable of hanging at the NHL level, which would be needed to compete. So I understand where university would be an option, but of course, in the CIS, you already have players in a break. They already have a long break for Christmas, and I just can't see the CIS affording a Christmas break and an Olympic break in the same year.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's reading week. That's always a good time, but it only falls for half of the Olympics the way it's spread out. So yeah, I don't know. For me personally, it would be tough. No matter what, it's gonna be. It's a good thing they have 4 years to kind of figure out what they're doing, because really what makes sense is the NHL to go. Because I mean, they've been doing it for however long, and it there's been some problems, but really it hasn't been anything too catastrophic. I mean, the loss of Tavares this year is something that is frustrating, but at the same time, how often does that happen where they're out for a season?
No, it's fair.
And, I mean, that injury could have happened when he was playing with the Islanders as well. So
yeah, it could happen with the Islanders. It could happen at the World Hockey Championships. You can't blame a tournament for someone's injury in that sense.
Exactly. He could fall down the stairs going to practice or something and tear his ACL and MCL and be out. So
it's true.
I get what they're saying, where it is inconvenient to change the scheduling of one season every 4 years to fit these games. You have a lot more back-to-back games, which can increase injury risk in the NHL, etc. But it just makes the tournament exciting. And I'm not saying that the tournament wouldn't be exciting without the players. It's just another excuse to see NHL players, see super teams, right? Get to see basically an all-star team from a lot of the nation. Does it make it lopsided for the other teams? Yes, but they held their own this tournament. So
yeah,
I think the NHL should keep going back, but it doesn't look like it.
No, I know one thing. The NHL, they proposed bringing back the World Cup of Hockey, and to me, I think it's really irritating, because I remember the 2004 World Cup of Hockey. It was great. It was the only tournament with international teams played under full NHL rules. But the thing is, if you want to revive this, it can't be a once every 8 or 9 year tournament. It has to be consistent. You can't, we're going to revive the World Cup for 2013, 2014. Either do it or let it die.
Yeah, I'm not totally sold on the World Cup of Hockey idea, mainly because of when it takes place as well. When it's taking place in the off season, in the late summer, I just don't see a lot of players actually wanting to do it anymore at this point, because the way like the game has changed since 2004. There's so much more training. There's so much more it's so structured, especially with like training camps and all that. I just don't see a lot of players, like if players working out for Gary Roberts for the whole summer. Are they going to want to leave that? Like,
no.
They have their plans, they have their setups, and just late summer is just a bad time for everyone. Like, for me, I'm not thinking about hockey at that point. I'm thinking about baseball. I'm thinking about NFL starting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the CFL going on. Like, it's just something that I don't think I would pay as much attention to, or I wouldn't have the same interest as it. Like, there wouldn't be as much interest for it. That's for sure, and that's why I think it's just a bad idea.
I don't think so, but here's the thing: the interest at first may not be there, but you hold it in Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver, and the arenas will be packed to capacity.
Oh yeah, they'll definitely be packed. I don't know, and it's just tough. Like, are other teams from overseas going to want to send their players, or going to send a team, right? Like, you need to make sure that it's going to be consistent, because you can't have it where, you know, the first year everyone joins it, and then a couple teams are like, well, you know what, I wasn't really a big fan of it, so next year I'm not going to go into it, and then you keep having if you keep having a fluctuating amount of teams going in, it could just be a really messy situation.
It could be. And the NHL, like, you mentioned the teams, and certain ones may not want to play, and the league basically in a way assumes that, oh, we'll get Canada, USA, Russia, Sweden, Germany. How do you know these teams are going to agree? How do you know how do you know a Sweden won't say, sorry, we're not playing in it? And then you have to scramble, you have to put someone like a Belarus in because you couldn't get a Sweden or a Slovakia to play.
And that's the thing, you might not get those people, because you know what? There's a lot of players that really enjoy their summers away from the game, right? Especially someone that, say, you know, you take a team where they lost in the cup, like players that lost in the cup final that year. You know what? They want to take the time to really rest up and be ready for next season. They're hungry. Or a team who did win the cup, who's beaten up, and they're like, you know what? We want to, like, it's grueling to go through the playoffs in the NHL alone, and then to have a shortened summer to come back and play. I feel like there would be a lot of players that really aren't a fan of it. You get the ones, of course, that are like all for it. The ones that play, you know, in the like when the playoffs are going on, they play in, what is it,
the World Hockey Championships.
The World Hockey Championships and stuff. But then and that's the thing. You want to create a tournament where you're going to have the best competition playing each other.
Of course.
You always want that. And if a player like Sidney Crosby's like, well, no, I really don't want to go, that's a big blow. So it's something that you could always try, but I don't know if it's going to work out.
It'll be a massive blow, and the only reason why the 04 World Cup of Hockey was so great was, well, 96 was the first year, and no one knew what it really was, so it was a bit strange, but 04 was the one that really took off, because it happened, about 2 weeks before the lockout started. Players didn't know if they were going to play at all, so they all felt, you know what, let's play in this event, because we may not know if we'll have a season in 04 or 05. As we saw, there was no season.
Yeah, exactly, and you know what, that was what sparked the interest, right? Like, they were like, oh, you know what, this is my chance to play, so I'm going to take it, because I might not play. But here, it's like, they know that, like, now that they have this new bargaining agreement, they know that they're going to be playing come September. They know the training camps and the preseason start then. I mean, you know what, it could benefit a lot of the players, too, by getting into playing shape a couple weeks prior. But if these players are still trying to get back into playing shape again, like, during that tournament, is the quality of hockey going to be that good either? Like, that's another question that raises there, right?
No.
Because, you know, the preseason is terrible hockey. Like, I can't stand watching the preseason. I went to two Oilers games, and they were the worst. They were absolutely terrible. I mean, the team's terrible still, but it's just the quality of hockey, right? You're having younger players in, you're having the players that are still struggling. You get, like, fat Dustin Byfuglien, who can't even skate from one end to the other. So, like, I mean, really, it's like, is it really going to be worth it, like, putting on this tournament if it's going to be just not enjoyable hockey, or, you know, you never know.
No, it makes sense, and that's a great point, because you do see guys during a lockout. Dustin Byfuglien, that picture of him at some event in Chicago, or wherever that picture was taken, he was about 290 pounds. Like, Dustin Byfuglien, he's always been a big dude, but he skyrocketed to almost 300 pounds. And if that's how he is in the off-season, like you said, he may not be able to last the whole entire game at that size in the off-season.
But then I guess the argument is, right, those 2 weeks are perfect. You know, you go to the tournament, you get in shape, so you're even more prepared for training camp. But, I mean, there's so many pros and cons to this, and, you know, I guess, like, you never really know what's going to happen.
No, it's true. You never know. And actually, going back to the Olympics for a second here, I know we mentioned Canada. This year, Canada, so many golds. They beat the Americans in gold, which is always fun to see Canada above the U.S. totals. But I do believe that medal totals should be the ultimate factor. And seeing Canada repeat in women's bobsled, Keely Humphrey, Heather Moyes, fantastic. And you mentioned ice dancing. Ice dancing was the one where there was a controversy. A French paper had reported that there was going to be a plan to fix it so that the U.S. got the gold and the Russians got the bronze, which would result in Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore being screwed out of the gold medal for Canada. And they had a great skate. You saw the Canadians do well in figure skating. But what I don't get is that the fact that even a rumor of a fix, why did the IOC not investigate it? Why was it blown over? And Sid Seixeira from the Sportsnet, we saw him blow up. We saw Sid lose his mind as to why it was not investigated. So I wonder, how much corruption is there really in the IOC when a fix is not even talked about at that kind of level?
Yeah, for me personally, from what I took from it is the IOC basically blew it off as nothing to provide damage control, right? Because there's the uproar and stuff. So, and the thing is, if they were to investigate, that opens a whole can of worms. You get the situation from Salt Lake where they're possibly changing medals and everything. It's kind of funny how it worked out. The team that skated after Tessa and Scott, it was a Russian team. And I actually thought that they probably skated the best out of all three. The Americans...
Charlie White and Meryl Davis.
Exactly. I actually thought that this Russian pair, just from my eyesight, I mean, I know nothing about ice dancing.
Right.
But I thought it was probably the most compelling and exciting dance that they did, and they were the ones that finished bronze. So, I mean, maybe it's just something that we don't understand. We don't understand what defines ice dancing, or maybe we don't understand what the process of the judging is.
Right.
Because really, all the people that are complaining, or the majority of the people that are complaining, including Sid, as much as I love Sid, it's like we're people that do not watch ice dancing. We watch it every 4 years. We get on the bandwagon, and you know what? We're proud of our country, so we want to see them win.
It's true.
Maybe it's just something that we aren't understanding. Maybe people, like, I haven't talked to anyone that watches ice dancing on a regular basis. Like, I mean, I heard, if I was correct, I saw a tweet or something about it where the American pairs run that they were actually repeating, like that broke the world record there. When they did it at another competition, they scored even higher than what they got at the Olympics. So to me, it's like, you know what, there's probably some corruption there, and it's crazy that the article that came out from the French newspaper, it's crazy that they predicted it. But at the same time, we don't have enough information. We aren't educated enough in ice dancing to really make an opinion on what happened.
No.
I'm so happy that they won silver. I would have loved them to see gold, get gold. And you know what? It is pretty skeptical when a pair breaks a world record and then has the world record broken in the same Olympics.
Yes.
In the same competition. But I don't know. I don't want to go too far and judge, because at the same, like, who knows? Maybe it was fair. Maybe they did something that we, to the naked eye of someone that never watches ice dancing, didn't see. No,
very true. It's a very true point. And you mentioned, we really don't know enough of it, because even Sid himself said he doesn't fully get the scoring, but he was still mad at that. And understandably, because when Canadians lose out on stuff and what can be deemed to be controversial, the whole nation is mad.
Oh, exactly. I agree. I was pissed off by it too. It was the same thing. I was pissed off that Patrick Chan lost. I mean, I'm pissed when we don't win, right? Of course, especially in a sport that we've been known to always win. You know, if Jennifer Jones would have lost there, I would have been mad.
Right.
If Canada would have lost to Sweden, I would have been mad. It just shows how Canadians, when we know that a gold medal should be ours, or we should succeed, we have high expectations. That's what it comes down to. And, we're sore losers in a way.
And, that's great, because now our Olympic mentality is changing. I remember when it was, let's just get bronze, let's just do okay. Now you want gold. The mentality of Canada is changing to how the Americans see the Olympic Games, how the Australians, how the Chinese handle it. They want gold and nothing else. Because after Vancouver, we saw domination in hockey. Alex Bilodeau in moguls. after you saw Jen Heil get a medal, I mean, it changed from just doing well to wanting to rule the Olympic Games, which never was the mentality of Canada, because in Olympics before, we had done average or just outright poorly in the Summer Games.
Yeah, I think that the Vancouver Olympics were imperative to changing the Olympic landscape for us, at least. Having it at home and and the athletes being able to experience Canada being behind them, because I mean, when you're in Sochi or you're in somewhere else, you know, you hear about it, but you don't actually get to see it or feel it. When you're in the building or you're outside skiing down that hill and you have absolutely everyone cheering for you, it just makes you know you have more drive and everything. And I think that really helped all the athletes coming for Sochi. It completely changed how, like, you know, they just worked harder. They wanted it more, and they got results. And I think that's just gonna just spring us into 2018. And I think that we could, you know what, if we have a good Olympics, like, we could win. We could outright win the Olympics.
Yeah.
It'll be tough because Russia's always good. You know, you always have to compete with the U.S. I mean, the Netherlands, of course, are going to win everything in speed skating. But we have a good chance.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned the speed skating. I find it funny with the Olympics how people complain. You know, women's hockey. Oh, it's always Canada, U.S. gold medal game, women's hockey. Why does no one investigate the fact that the Dutch just dominate speed skating? Why is that never in question?
Yeah, I guess so. But at the same time, I mean, with them, it's like they bring a ton of people for speed skating too, yes. Right? So they have way more chances to win medals, and it's just, that's their sport. It's like us. Hockey's our sport. Yeah. Curling's our sport. That's their sport, and I have no issue with that at all. I seem to like it. You know, I don't really watch that much speed skating, so I'm okay if they win it.
Right. Yeah. No, and of course, Sven Kramer, the evil Sidney Crosby, dominated again. I just like. Sven Kramer is probably one of the funniest athletes you'll ever see, because of course, as we mentioned, he is the If you Google up Sven Kramer, he looks so much like Sidney Crosby, but he's crass with the media. He hates stupid questions. He's the anti-Crosby because you would never hear. There's a video of him from 2010 where a reporter asked for his name because with a TV station, they need you to say your name and the event you won. It's for technical reasons. And Kramer went up to the reporter and asked her, "Are you stupid? No. Didn't you see me just skate?"
Wow.
Like, I thought it was funny.
You can't do that.
That's something that his clone, Sidney Crosby, would never, ever, ever say.
Oh no, Crosby would probably apologize and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me just repeat that."